heavily backed up.
Very heavily backed up.
A little bit earlier, we were commenting. Welcome back. We're broadcasting live from Thohoyandou in Limpopo. I've got to tell you, it is absolutely crazy, and I use that in the kindest way possible. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and so many more still on the road trying to make it to the starting time of 10 o'clock. That's when the official ceremony will start. Right now I'm joined by Cardinal Napier from Durban and Archbishop President, who's the head of the Archbishops. They joined me here in Limpopo. Cardinal, thank you very much for joining me this morning. But when we talk about the history of today, the historical nature of today, the thousands and thousands of people that showed up for this ceremony, what are we really saying to South Africa, to the world?
I think the first thing we're saying is we have had great moments in the past. For instance, Nelson Mandela's release, Nelson Mandela's inauguration, with 2 great days, and a great man was the focus of the world. Today, what's so significant is an ordinary man, a husband, a father, a very active man in his community, and a very outstanding Christian is being honored today. That for me is a great history, and he transcends all boundaries, whether it's racial, color, language. What he has done, standing for his faith, transcends all of them. So that's why I think so wonderful to see so many people from everywhere coming together.
Archbishop, let me bring you to this conversation, and such an important point that Cardinal Napier is mentioning, that we forget that this was an ordinary human being with extraordinary circumstances who's done extraordinary things.
Absolutely. He was a person who was a family man, a husband, a father, a teacher, who lived during the apartheid era and experienced exactly the same struggles as all black people experienced in those times. But the important thing is that he was an upright person. He was a person of virtue, and he believed in the respect of each and every individual. And that is what made him great, is that he would not participate in anything that would threaten the life of somebody. And in that we see an example that all of us can follow. We don't have to be great heroes in life, as long as we are committed to saying, I want to do what is right, and I want to respect the lives of other people. Thank you.
Cardinal, today we're seeing ethnicity groups from all over the country, white, black, you name them, they're all here in many ways to celebrate the life of a remarkable human being. Yes. And for many of them, it will be the first time that they would even heard of a place called Thohoyandou, Limpopo.
Certainly, and I think the very most significant thing is that this man here was always doing things for others. And he's a great role model. For me, that's the most important thing about today. We're holding up a role model for men, especially for young men. You can make a success of your life wherever you are by simply living your principles. I think that's what we're celebrating, living our principles to the fullest.
We can't forget that there's a history in the making today. It's the first Southern African to be beatified. A lot of people will hear about this process for the very first time today, Archbishop. What, at the end of the day, is Benedict Daswa's legacy?
Look, I think what we are celebrating today is truly a celebration of South Africa as well. It's a unifying celebration. We are celebrating a fellow South African, a Catholic, but a person who can truly be a role model, most particularly for young people. Many of our young people are struggling today with various issues, and he's a person who can give us hope, because he had those same sort of struggles, but he persevered and was able to get through them. So I think that he is a good role model for men, for fathers, for husbands, and for our young people. And for teachers, because we mustn't forget he was also a teacher, and he was very committed to developing the minds of young people.
What But we can't forget today is also important because this is really ahead of the big visit by the Pope to the African continent. He won't be visiting South Africa, but he'll stop in Uganda and Kenya. And it really is a show of force, not only a religious perspective, but that the Catholic faith, that the Catholic religion is growing. Christianity is growing.
You know, I think we've always got to live in hope. And the hope that the Pope will come to South Africa someday, for me, that hope is centered upon, this is the first step today, the Beatification. The next step is canonization. I hope that's the time we'll have the Pope coming to actually be with us then. And that's, I think, must be why in South Africa we must live as a people of hope for a better future. And Benedict Daswa, I think, opens up that possibility for us.
The fact that the Pope is coming to the African continent, also ahead of a very historic visit, please talk to me about what that also says from an African perspective. He won't be stopping in South Africa, but he's going to Kenya. Last year we had Irene Stefani, who was also beatified, declared a saint. We've also had other Africans going to sainthood. Talk to me about that. What does it say on the global perspective?
There are many African saints, of course, and we're very disappointed, of course, that the Pope couldn't be with us this morning, today, in the celebration. But he wrote us a very nice letter to explain that he wouldn't be able to come, and he has asked Cardinal Amatu to represent him here. I think that what you said about Christianity growing, I think we mustn't forget that Africa is a very spiritual place and people do believe in God. And very often when we read the newspapers or look at television articles, it presents a very, very negative picture. And you would think that Christianity is about to fade from the face of the earth. Certainly in the Western society, there are problems within numbers attending church and so on. But I truly believe that people are living their Christianity. Christianity is growing. It's very much the same when we read the newspapers about our country, and a very negative picture is very often painted. But there's so many positive things happening, and certainly this event is a sign of that positivity in our country, in South Africa, that we are people who are united and we are committed and we are living and believing in God and living a spiritual life.
Archbishop President talks about the fact that media plays a particular role, that there's a negative perception, but there's over 170 million Catholics in or on the African continent. That is not a small number by on any measure.
No, it isn't, but I think it's events like this year that can galvanize us into believing more in ourselves. If Benedict Daswa could reach this point of recognition in the church for just being a simple Catholic, what's to stop anyone else from doing the same? We're so used to hearing about nuns and priests and bishops and so on being canonized that we don't think of an ordinary layman as being able to do that. So I believe that this is a wonderful challenge and an opportunity for us. A great honor, but honors always come with challenges, and I think this is the challenge. Let's be what we say we are, just like Benedict, foremost Catholic, very good man in his community, good teacher, and above all, a good husband and a good man in his society.
Let's not forget, Cardinal, some of the serious issues in this community that people like Benedict Daswa was fighting, the increase of witchcraft. How do we create that concerted effort to steer young people away from the negative things in society?
I think education plays a very important part, and I think Benedict Daswa recognized that himself. Education is not just about the school subjects, but it's an education of how we can live our lives well. And I think the more we can educate young people and the more we can dialogue and talk about these controversial subjects even, is a big help for forming young people and giving them the skills, if you like, to be able to counteract whatever is negative and whatever destroys life.
So we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining me. Cardinal Napier from Durban and Archbishop President, who's the head of the Archbishops here in Southern Africa, talking to me about what this day means, but also reflecting on the greater work that still needs to be done. As we know, Benedict Daswa was a strong proponent against witchcraft, against traditional healers, and encouraged and urged everybody to turn to Christianity. In actual fact, he died for his beliefs. Today it's his beatification ceremony, and you can only imagine thousands of people streaming into Thohoyandou, and it's about celebrating this remarkable man who was only a layman. You heard the Cardinal talk about an ordinary man who was a family man, who took his beliefs to the next level, and hopefully through this ceremony today into sainthood, he will be a light and a beacon for everybody else who trekked all the way to Limpopo. We go back to the studio. We'll have more for you a little bit later.